People of Reddit who work in a casino, what's some of the saddest moments you witnessed? Former poker dealer at a casino. An older gentleman started to have a heart attack at the table. I called the floor person for assistance with the call button. Paramedics are rushed in, etc. all within minutes. In this instance I'm instructed to keep the game rolling by the floor person as he whispered in my ear. 2 hands are dealt and played, and a player at the table requested the heart attack guy get moved somewhere else as it is disrupting the game. Another player asked to have his chips picked up and call for the open seat because we have a wait list. I was disgusted. I saw a poker dealer have an epileptic seizure at the table. The paramedics hadn't even arrived before players were complaining about getting another dealer or requesting a table change while the dealer was seizing on the floor next to them. A guy blew his retirement and had to go back to work. He was a retired postmaster and went back as a delivery driver. There were these 2 middle-aged Greek or Cypriot ladies who were always on the slot machines. Every day when I started my shift they were there and they were there when I finished 10 hours later. And still there in the same clothes the next day oftentimes. They were super nice and always polite to the staff. One day they hit the jackpot and win big. I think it was either £15k or £45k. It was a good few years ago now. Everyone was overjoyed for them, except the managers obviously. Well, the managers then gave them free meals at the restaurant and an open bar tab until every single penny of that money was clawed back into the casino. We used to have a woman who would be on the blackjack tables for 5 days/nights straight. Her husband would call and tell her that her kids wanted her home. Her boss actually came to the casino to try and get her to leave. She was missing work. I don't know what happened to her, but she's probably ruined her life. Former valet at a casino. The amount of daily regulars who drove barely functioning vehicles full of trash, roaches, and rats who would actually valet their car and go gamble away any money they had to their name was honestly depressing. The saddest I remember was a 90-plus-year-old lady who drove a 91 Corolla, and when we got in her car we realized she had no power steering fluid at all, and her steering wheel would barely turn. I have no earthly idea how her frail arms could turn it. We went and bought her some before she left that evening. During my 8-hour shift a gentleman won $15,000 on a slot machine. Punched out at end of shift and had the next 2 days off. Returned to work after my weekend to find the man still sitting at the same slot machine. He had been there for 2+ days losing $15,000. A previous boss of mine worked at a casino in Ag. He said he saw all kinds of terrible things, but the worst was when they had to close the main lobby cause a guy jumped from the 4th floor after losing. Jesus, how much did he lose? His balance for sure. It's not the big things, it's the little things. You see someone rocking 3 machines at 9 AM on a Tuesday? They have places they ought to be, not in this casino. Thanksgiving, Christmas, hell, even Mother's Day, places slammed. Go home people. My mom works as a dealer at a casino and has told me multiple stories of grown men wearing adult diapers at the table so they don't have to leave to use the restroom. As a Vegas regular I can attest it is orders of magnitude worse when they do not wear the diapers. I can't even imagine how crappy it must feel to walk back to your room in a fully loaded diaper after losing over 5k. Edit. Thanks for the gold. Now imagine the smell. It's been about 15 years, but I worked in one for about 4 years. The one that stands out was a woman who came from the country to the big city to get Xmas gifts for the whole family, including young kids who still believed in Santa and all of that, but spent all of the Christmas money at the casino before going to the mall. Also, a few years later I went back to visit, and when talking to one of the pit bosses about who was still there and whatnot, she told me one of my old regulars, who was actually nice and likable, a rare trait in that business, had recently committed suicide as a result of gambling too much. We had to evacuate and close down for the rest of the day due to a burst pipe causing no running water. When I walked outside there was an elderly lady throwing a legit tantrum in the parking lot. She was on the ground kicking and screaming. Her screams sounded like something you'd expect from someone who'd just lost a family member, not someone who had to leave the casino for a few hours. I left, but some of the security who were dealing with her told me later she was too upset to drive home and they had to call a family member to pick her up. I've seen some things. A lot of what others have commented is fairly common, but this was definitely the most messed up. In general, people who come for the first time and are super nice and friendly, they don't care about winning or losing much, just came to have fun. They come back a few more times. Then after a few years they are regulars that don't smile anymore. They don't laugh. They don't count their wins, just their losses, and sweat every calm point they earn, and act like gambling is their job now and the focus of their life. I've seen more than one person have this happen to them. The other saddest thing is when a regular stops coming in and their spouse comes out and tells us they passed. We are almost family with some of our regulars and it hurts to get that news. Grandmother, mother, and daughter heading to the casino by car from 2 hours away. Mother had a postcard to get a free cast iron pan for showing up. Daughter is more than 8 months pregnant. 1 hour away from the casino, daughter starts to have labor pains. Mother won't stop and take her to the hospital. She's gotta have that $10 pan. They arrive at the casino an hour before the promotion was going to start. Mother raises all hell trying to get her pan, but the workers for the promo haven't arrived yet. Daughter ends up having to be transported by ambulance to the hospital. All over a $10 pan. Did she ever get the pan? I did casino security for 3 years before I became a police officer. Had a code M, medical, early one morning, around 4 or 5 am. Old guy in his 80s passed out and fell out of his chair, wife sitting next to him. I was the first to get to him, did a quick assessment and found he didn't have a pulse. Immediately started CPR. The old lady looked over and said, "Oh, he does this all the time. Don't worry about him." Between chest compressions, I told her he wasn't breathing and she just kept playing her a lot machine. She didn't miss a spin, even when the paramedics took him away. I saw her again the next night and asked how he was doing. With the straightest face ever, she said, "Oh, he never woke up. I'm sure he's in a freezer by now," and went right back to the same machine she was playing the night before. Worked in a casino for about 7 years and the one that has always stuck with me was when a kid, 18 over 19, came with his friends and lost $100 playing blackjack. Then he was sitting there, looking dejected and watching his friends win. He left and came back with another $100. I could tell from the way he was acting he probably didn't have the original $100 to lose, so he definitely couldn't afford to lose another $100. So I asked if he was sure he wanted to play. He nodded his head and solemnly said yes. Unfortunately, he lost that money too. I wasn't a casino employee, but I was an EMT in a certain beach town on the East Coast that could be described as bargain bin Vegas. On a given shift we would probably field 3 or 4 casino calls, more in the summer. It was pretty soul crushing. Most calls were alcohol related or obvious slip and fall scams, but occasionally we would happen upon some real tragedies. Suicide attempts, ODs, apes, assaults happened with depressing frequency. This one sticks with me the most though. One day we had a call for a woman in her 70s sitting at the slots experiencing chest pain around 2 am. She refused treatment despite being in bad shape. We pleaded and begged and even had the on-call cardiologist talk to her on the phone, but she was on a streak and wouldn't hear it. An hour later we were back doing CPR. She died right there in front of the same slot machine with a receipt for $7 in winnings. Super messed up. The amount of employees we had to treat for exhaustion or diabetic related emergencies due to them not having enough breaks to manage their blood sugars was also super messed up. Frick that town. I worked at a casino as a dealer through college. A lot of incidents were pretty sad, especially with regulars that you liked. One regular would tell me about his middle school age kids, and then I would realize the next week or so later that he was missing their school plays/recitals etc. because he was at the tables. I remember working an overpass one Christmas Eve and begging him to go home when 6/7 am rolled around because his kids would be up and opening presents. Other times just people screaming at you for stealing their mortgage payments from them that month. Then seeing them back again the next day. It's a really murky area for sure. This was in the UK circa 2002 to 2006. During training, we were told we could offer leaflets about gambling addiction to customers we thought had a problem, but that it was a delicate issue best left to pit bosses and managers who were also on the floor. One time a guy who was always on the machines asked me for help. and I showed him the materials we had, and then he got really angry with me for suggesting he had a problem, so I didn't try that again. The Christmas Day guy though, I begged him to leave, not as a dealer in a casino, but as a person who'd had an absentee father during childhood. He just wouldn't. Thank you so much for watching, and soobscrooble if you want.